Welcome over to Automotive World, everyone. I'm your host, my name is Mystery, and tonight we have what is going to be our top story of the night. A lot of other news can come out, but this is going to be the top story. This is something that we have expected. We knew this was going to happen. They told us this was going to happen. This is also necessarily not the first time this has happened to this company, but given the recent state of Fisker and the turmoil they've gone through with everything, just with production, reliability, just with support on a sales and a dealer level, it was only a matter of time, which we all knew Fisker was going to, they were going to do it. They were essentially already dead, but it was only a matter of time. Just a few days after they issued the voluntary recalls to address software updates via over-the-air updates in the North American market, today, on the 18th, Fisker Group has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Let's go into the press release that we have here. Like I said, this is news coming out today on the 18th. This was filed yesterday on June 17th over in California. This is not the first time this has happened, and we knew this was going to happen, but the Fisker Group is filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. This statement comes out of Los Angeles. They have filed for Chapter 11 protections in the District of Delaware. This obviously is huge for consumers regarding the recall. Obviously, this just shows the state of the company. So this is huge for a variety of reasons. This is huge for the EV market, just what we're seeing on the EV market. Even though, like we said, we knew this was going to happen, the fact that it has now happened, there's now going to be implications with service for customers. There's going to be financial implications for shareholders, company members, obviously salespeople, service people, dealer networks, and consumers themselves. Things like recalls and things like that, software support and just support on the vehicle after purchase, that is going to deteriorate now that they have filed for Chapter 11. And unfortunately, Fisker talks about here, obviously, when you talk about these things, when you're filing for Chapter 11, it's never a good thing, but you want to try to, show some promise. That way people try to reinvest. And they talk about how they made incredible progress with their Ocean SUV, how it went to market twice as fast and things like that. It's great for them to talk about that, but at the same time, sometimes it's not always good to be at the market twice as fast. You do need to make it to the market in the right time. But I think for Fisker, what we've seen too from a lot of other automotive reviewers as well, and automotive journalists, sure, Fisker made it to the market twice as fast, but the quality just wasn't, I don't want to say bad, but it definitely wasn't as good. There was definitely lots of recalls and things that had to happen. Obviously, Fisker now filing for Chapter 11, this is what they determined the most viable path forward for the company. They are going to, as they talk about here, after evaluating all the options for business, they did determine proceeding with the sale of the assets under Chapter 11. So, this is, when you look at it on the numbers, yes, this is probably the most viable, but this is still not good because now that this is Chapter 11, they do have to sell their assets. So, Fisker may sell their assets and they might be able to come out clean and wash and be able to pay all that debt off. But the thing is, if Fisker tries to do this again, they're not going to have any assets. All their assets are going to be sold, and if they do decide to try to buy them back, obviously the companies, if they even allow them to buy them back, are not going to sell them at the same price it was sold. So, while Fisker says this is the best solution and a viable path for the company, really it's just kind of some marketing BS, honestly. And like I said, this is not the first time we've seen this with Fisker, and this really sucks for Fisker too, because this time around, people kind of finally got to know who Fisker was, but it was for not the right reasons. If you look at it, most people, if you ask them about Fisker, very, very few people knew what Fisker was in the world. And if they did, they probably knew him from the very rare Fisker Karma, supercar that they made. But this was kind of the first time Fisker actually, got on the map, went mainstream. Mainstream household consumers knew about them, and this unfortunately was this was a really, really wrong rap. They got completely the wrong experience. Even owners, current owners and former owners that bought the vehicle for a little while and never were able to take delivery of one, This is not how, if Fisker, you're trying to rebrand your SUV. Like I said, I understand you went to the market twice as fast, but like I said, sometimes twice as fast is not twice as good. Not only do you have to make sure your vehicles are of high quality, but you have to make sure that the people and your networks, your dealer networks and things, are of high quality as well. And so, even though Fisker did all of that, it didn't work out. And like I said, this is big because people finally, even normal people, they still probably don't know a lot about Fisker, but then they now know the Fisker name, and this is not how you want to be known towards the people. Now, Fisker also previously announced, and we did cover that story, manufacturing pauses will remain in place. So, like I said, with the Chapter 11 bankruptcy, that is going to continue on here. Fisker intends to file certain customary motions with bankruptcy court to ensure reduced operations are able to continue, including employee wages and benefits. So what does that mean? Chapter 11, right? They don't have any money. They have to sell their assets. That pause is going to remain, but in order to still continue operations, they have to reduce operations. What does that mean? They have to reduce the amount of cars that they're making, and they have to reduce the amount of labor that they have. So, even though they still do have to pay employee wages and benefits, what does that mean? That means we're going to see that pause continue. We're going to see less vehicles come out. We're going to see less support, like I said, for those recalls and updates and repairs. But ultimately, we're going to see some people get laid off. We're going to see a lot of people get laid off, and that is not what you want to see. And this is going to be, from the factories to the dealer network, because you're not going to be selling as many cars. We're going to see a lot of people get laid off, go find other jobs. This is really, really not good. Now, preserving customer programs and they're, compensating needed vendors on a go-forward basis, that also as well is going to lead to reduced labor in the dealer network and in your service and manufacturing network, because obviously Fisker has to uphold contracts and things that it had with other vendors. So this is not good at all. Now, Fisker does talk here. Fisker Incorporated and other U.S. subsidiaries, as well as subsidiaries outside the U.S., are not included in Chapter 11 filing at this time. So, Fisker is a global brand. Fisker globally has not filed for Chapter 11 yet. So, Fisker globally is still selling cars at a normal rate. Keep in mind, though, Fisker is still not a very big brand. And obviously, when you look at generally, obviously, the car market is a global market, but when you look at the car market, usually the two biggest markets are the North American market, United States and Canada, and the Chinese market. So the fact that, Fisker has, unfortunately had this kind of endeavor here in the United States, although it is technically a separate company, it still is not a good look for investors overall worldwide. So this is going to affect many people. Not just here in the United States, but this is going to also affect Fisker globally, as now they have to incur debt that they, obviously, like every company, is never expecting to incur. So this is going to have huge, huge, huge implications, not only in the United States, but worldwide. And really here in the United States, because like I said, this, the way that Fisker went, we have seen so many reviewers go show up at the dealer network wanting to buy a car, never even getting a car, people not even getting back to them. It's like they didn't want to make a sale. We have seen bad, vehicles with bad quality. We've seen tons of recalls. This is not, when you come into a new market, especially being the North American market, that is not the presence that you want to make. That is not the introduction that you want to make. Finally, here we do have a few more pages. Fisker is being represented by Davis Polk and Warborough LLP. These are the legal advisors that they are dealing with here, as well as their restructuring advisors, Hearn Consulting Group. So obviously, when it comes to Chapter 11, there's obviously going to be tons of advisors and tons of lawyers, because there's just so many things legality wise that they have to do to file for this, how they have to go about this, and also what they're going to face as well. There are going to be customers and dealer networks and employees and things that because of this restructuring and things, they're going to lose their jobs, and they're probably a lot of them are probably going to get they're going to get cheated on a little bit, and they're going to be missing things. So when Chapter 11 comes, it's very bad because you have to sell all your assets and everything. But there is lots of legal hurdles that we will see, that we've already seen from Fisker, but that we will now see from the future, from today, from Fisker. And it's going to come from everywhere. It's going to come from dealer networks. It's going to come from shareholders. It's going to come from customers who need repairs, customers who are trying to buy cars. There's just going to be so many cases that we will see, because it's just what happens, you know. Unfortunately, that's the part that sucks about legality. Now we do have at the bottom here, pretty much down here, we just have their immediate contact, Matthew DeBoard. He's Vice President of Communications. We do also have Rachel's communications as well. Like I said, this just sucks for Fisker. Because Fisker was legitimately, like, you know, I knew him from the Karma, but Fisker was a cool brand when they brought their cars over. They looked really nice. The quality on them actually wasn't bad. There was just some cars, the quality wasn't very consistent, but the cars were actually pretty cool. Especially too what Fisker was, you know, talking about recently with their pricing. You know, the cars were very affordable in terms of how they labeled it. Obviously, a lot of those affordable models you weren't able to actually find. But Fisker was trying to do some things in the industry, especially in the EV industry, that were different. And it really, really sucks to see any car brand go out, and it sucks to see, you know, Fisker go out, because they, you know, like I said, they've been around for a long time and they've really tried, but they've just never really had, you know, they've just never had the luck, they've never had the backing or the interest. You know, they've never really made something appealing to the masses. And I think finally, you know, going in on an all EV brand, they finally tried to do it. But like I said, I think there was just so many things, you know, being to the market twice as fast as things. You know, it just showed with the amount of recalls, with the quality of a lot of the vehicles, how there was a lot of issues with them. And ultimately, just, you know, we've seen so many videos of the service and the dealer networks. They just sucked. You know, people were trying to buy cars. We had people making videos trying to give Fisker their money to buy a car, and Fisker would not come back to them. Or they would say, "Hey, we're going to deliver your car here," and then 2-3 months go on, and they're still saying, "Hey, we you know, we're trying to deliver your car." It's like, I think ultimately what happened is Fisker didn't, you know, Fisker's never had that type of presence, and they tried to be this huge mainstream brand like a Honda, a Volkswagen, a Toyota. And by going twice as fast, I don't think they just set themselves up for success. You know, the dealer networks were not capable enough. They were not talking to each other. There was no continuity. The size of the dealer networks themselves, they had, you know, they did not have enough networks. But ultimately, like I said, they didn't have the training nor the mindset to actually execute these ideas. And so I think what happened is, like I said, they just tried to be this big car company, and they tried to do it too fast when they weren't that. And when you don't have that prior experience and things to know how to do that, your dealer networks aren't going to know how to do that either. And we saw that with people trying to literally purchase these vehicles, but they could not purchase them because dealers could not, you know, they just couldn't get them. And a lot of times salespeople wouldn't even call back. And so, you know, we've talked about this in the last video, but this was just mismanagement overall, from a development standpoint, from a sales standpoint, from a financial standpoint. This was dead on arrival. This was a train that had no tracks ahead of it and was just doomed. The plan was failure. This plan had no visual conception of succeeding. And unfortunately, now that we've seen it with Chapter 11, you know, we see the end of the road. It'll be interesting. Obviously, like I said, this is going to have huge implications on Fisker and Fisker globally. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens to Fisker globally. And like I said, this isn't the first time this has happened to Fisker. So it'll be really, really interesting to see if in another 3, 5, 10, 12, or however many years it takes, do we see Fisker come back? Can Fisker salvage this somehow? It'll be really, really interesting to see that. And also, too, just for the automotive world, like I said, the EV market has just been coming to a crash lately. And even though Fisker is not necessarily a big brand, this just adds fuel to that fire. So that's going to do it for now, everyone. Let me know what you guys and girls think down below. If any of you folks did buy a Fisker, if you've ever had a Fisker, or you were even attempting to buy one and you went through the problems we talked about in this video and my previous video, or many other people have talked about, you were trying to buy a Fisker and they just would not allow you to buy one. The salespeople would not follow up with you. The car you were trying to get, just they could never materialize it. It could never be delivered. Or if you had a Fisker and you're having issues with it, or if you traded it in, please let me know. Or even if you've had any issues just with, as a consumer to the company itself, please let me know what your experience has been with Fisker. Whether you have owned one or not owned one or tried to own one, please let me know your experience and what all of you think about this. That is going to do it for now, though. And like always, thanks for watching, everyone.